Maya was a young mechanic who lived in a small town surrounded by hills and quiet streets. Ever since she was a little girl, she had loved fixing things. Broken bicycles, old radios, and even small motors fascinated her. She enjoyed understanding how every part worked and how pieces fit together. While other children spent their afternoons playing games, Maya spent hers in her father's garage, learning to use tools and reading books about machines. People often told her that mechanics was unusual work for a girl, but she never cared. She loved what she did, and nothing could stop her passion. One sunny morning, Maya received a phone call from her uncle, who lived in another city. "Maya," he said warmly, "I have something for you. I am leaving you my old truck. It has been in the family for years, and I think you will like it." Maya's heart jumped with excitement. Her uncle had always encouraged her love for machines. She immediately asked him to tell her more, but he only smiled and said, "Go see it yourself. You will understand when you arrive." When Maya reached her uncle's house, she found the truck parked under a big tree. She had imagined it might be shiny and new, but the reality was different. The truck was old, rusty, and covered in dust. The paint had faded to a dull orange, and large patches of rust showed through. Its tires were flat and the mirrors were broken. Even the windows had streaks of dirt. Maya walked around the truck, touching the scratches and dents, feeling the cold metal under her fingers. She smiled quietly to herself. "This is going to be fun," she said softly. She could see the potential in the old truck. Every machine, no matter how old or broken, had a story and could be repaired. Maya loved challenges, and she was determined to bring this truck back to life. However, not everyone shared her excitement. When some neighbors saw her standing near the truck, they began to laugh. "Look at that old thing," said one man. "It looks like it hasn't moved in 20 years. Another neighbor, shaking his head, added, "Maya, why would you want to waste your time on that rusty junk?" Maya felt a small sting of embarrassment, but she refused to let their words discourage her. She had heard such comments many times before. People often judged her because she was a young woman working as a mechanic. But she had learned that confidence and patience could overcome doubt. Maya started by cleaning the truck carefully. She washed away the thick layer of dust and dirt with water and soap. She polished the metal parts to see what was still strong and solid. While working, she discovered that the engine, though old and worn, was intact. Some wires needed replacing and a few bolts were loose, but nothing was broken beyond repair. Her excitement grew with each discovery. She knew that if she worked carefully and patiently, the truck could run perfectly again. As the sun moved across the sky, Maya continued examining the truck. She opened the hood and checked the engine piece by piece. She checked the brakes, the tires, and even the small parts of the steering system. Everything told her that this truck had been well cared for in its earlier days. It only needed someone who believed in it to give it a new life. Maya felt proud of herself. She knew that by the end of the week she would have made the truck start again. While Maya worked, she thought about her uncle. He had always been kind and encouraging, and he had faith in her skills. She remembered the words he had said on the phone. "Go see it yourself. You will understand when you arrive." Now she realized he wanted her not just to inherit the truck, but to learn something from it. She felt a warm connection to him and knew that this old truck was more than just metal and tires. It was a gift of trust, knowledge, and opportunity. By evening, the truck looked a little cleaner, and Maya wiped her hands on her overalls, smiling at her progress. She was ready for the real work to begin, and nothing would stop her determination. Tomorrow, she would start checking the engine more deeply, replacing broken parts and making the truck ready for the road. The neighbors might have laughed, but Maya knew the story was just beginning. The rusty truck had a secret, and she was ready to discover it. The next morning, Maya woke up early, full of energy. The sun had just risen, and the sky was painted in soft orange and pink colors. She packed her toolbox and some cleaning cloths and walked to the old truck. Today, she decided, would be the day she began working on the engine. She was excited but also a little nervous. The engine was old and she did not know what she might find inside. Maya opened the hood carefully. The engine looked complicated, with wires, bolts, and pipes all connected in ways that seemed confusing to anyone who had never worked on a machine. Maya, however, was not anyone. She had studied engines for years and she had fixed cars, motorcycles, and even farm equipment. She took a deep breath and began checking each part one by one. First, she checked the oil. It was thick and dark, but she could tell it had been changed sometimes in the past. Then she looked at the spark plugs. Some were worn, and a few had small cracks. She replaced them carefully. Next, she examined the belts and wires. A couple of belts were loose and some wires were frayed, but nothing seemed impossible to fix. Maya smiled. This was exactly the kind of challenge she loved. While she worked, people in the neighborhood began to notice. Some came closer to watch, curious about what she was doing. A few shook their heads and whispered. "She will never get it to start," one said quietly. Another added, "That truck is too old. It is better to leave it as it is." Maya heard them, but she did not respond. She had learned long ago that people often judge too quickly. What mattered was not their words, but her own belief and effort. Hours passed as Maya worked steadily. She cleaned the engine, tightened loose bolts, and replaced broken parts. She checked the brakes and tires again, making sure everything was safe. At one point, she sat on the ground and wiped sweat from her forehead. Her hands were dirty, covered in grease, but she felt happy. There was a quiet satisfaction in making something old and broken ready to work again. By afternoon, the engine looked much better. Maya decided it was time to try starting the truck. She took a deep breath and turned the key in the ignition. At first, nothing happened. The engine made a small cough, then stopped. Maya was not discouraged. She checked the battery and connections again and tried a few more times. Each time the engine made a small sound and her excitement grew. She could feel that the truck wanted to come alive, but it needed her patience. During her work, Maya remembered what her uncle had said on the phone. "Go see it yourself. You will understand when you arrive." She thought about those words while studying the truck carefully. She realized her uncle had left the truck for a reason. It was not just a gift. It was a test of her skills, patience, and determination. The more she worked, the more she understood that this truck was teaching her lessons about persistence and care. By late afternoon, the truck finally made a strong, steady sound as the engine roared to life. Maya jumped up, her face lighting with joy. The engine hummed smoothly, as if it had been waiting for her all along. She laughed softly and patted the hood. "I knew you had potential," she said. For a moment, she imagined her uncle smiling and watching her from afar, proud of what she had done. Neighbors who had doubted her now came closer. Some of them looked surprised and a few nodded quietly. Maya ignored their comments. She knew the true value of the truck was not in its appearance or age, but in the story it held, and the work she had put into it. She cleaned the tools, closed the hood, and stepped back to admire the truck. It still had rust on the sides and scratches on the paint, but it was alive. Maya decided to take the truck for a short drive around the town. She adjusted the mirrors, checked the brakes one last time, and started moving slowly. The truck responded perfectly, moving smoothly over the small streets. People waved and smiled as she passed by, some whispering words of admiration. Maya felt proud, but more importantly, she felt a connection to her uncle and to the truck. She knew there was more to discover. As she parked the truck back under the tree, her eyes fell on the glove box. Her uncle had hinted that there was something special inside. Maya felt her heart beat faster. Tomorrow, she decided she would open it and see what secret her uncle had left for her. For now, she smiled, knowing that the first step of the journey had been completed. The rusty truck was no longer just an old vehicle. It was a key to a new adventure. The next morning, Maya woke up with excitement. The truck was parked neatly under the big tree, its engine humming softly after the work of the previous day. She had slept thinking about it, imagining the adventures it might bring and the secret her uncle had left inside the glove box. Today, she decided she would explore that secret carefully. Before opening the glove box, Maya cleaned the truck's interior. She wiped the dusty dashboard and vacuumed the seats. Even though the outside of the truck was rusty and worn, the inside had a charm that made her smile. She adjusted the mirrors and checked the windows. Everything was ready. Then her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the glove box. She had no idea what she would find. Slowly, she opened the small compartment. Inside, there was an envelope with her name written neatly in her uncle's handwriting. Alongside it were a few folded papers and a small shiny key. Maya's eyes widened. Her uncle had always loved puzzles and surprises. She realized that he had left her something meaningful, something that would make her journey with the truck even more special. Maya carefully unfolded the papers. They were a map and some notes. The map showed a route from her town to a quiet, hidden place outside the city. The notes were instructions, written in her uncle's neat handwriting. "This is a journey for you," the note read. "Follow the map. You will find what I could not finish. Trust yourself and your skills." Maya's heart raced. She had always admired her uncle's clever ideas, and now he had left her a treasure hunt of sorts, using the truck as the starting point. She spent a few minutes examining the key. It was small but strong. Maya wondered what it might open. A box, a door? A secret workshop, perhaps? The possibilities made her imagination run wild. She carefully placed the envelope, map, and key in her bag, feeling a sense of adventure she had never felt before. This was more than just a truck now. It was a gateway to something amazing. Maya decided to follow the map immediately. She packed some tools, a bottle of water, and a small snack for the journey. The truck, though old and rusty on the outside, was steady and reliable. She turned the key in the ignition and the engine purred smoothly. It felt alive under her hands. With a deep breath, Maya started driving slowly, following the map's directions carefully. The route led her through narrow streets and small roads that twisted around hills. She passed fields with bright flowers and trees that swayed in the morning breeze. Birds sang softly and the air smelled fresh and clean. Maya enjoyed every moment. Even though the journey seemed simple, the map hinted at hidden paths and surprises that made her feel like a true explorer. After some time, the map led her to a small forest. The trees were tall and thick, and sunlight filtered through the leaves in golden beams. The road became narrower, but the truck moved carefully. Maya's excitement grew. She knew she was getting closer to the place her uncle had marked. Soon, she reached a clearing where an old barn stood. Its wooden doors were worn, and vines had grown around the sides. Maya parked the truck and stepped out, her eyes wide with curiosity. The barn looked quiet and abandoned, yet there was something welcoming about it. Maya took the key from her bag and approached the door. She inserted it into the rusty lock, and with a gentle turn, it clicked open. The barn creaked as the doors swung wide, revealing a space filled with tools, wooden shelves, and the faint smell of oil and metal. Maya realized this was her uncle's secret place, a workshop where he had built things and dreamed of inventions. She stepped inside slowly, taking in every detail. There were small vehicles, spare parts, and unfinished projects scattered around. Maya felt a sense of wonder. Her uncle had trusted her to discover this place, and now it was hers to explore. She knew that with patience and skill, she could continue his work, learn from his notes, and maybe even create something new. Maya smiled to herself, feeling proud and determined. The rusty truck had brought her here, not just as a vehicle, but as a key to adventure and knowledge. She understood that her journey was just beginning. The map, the key, and the workshop were more than treasures. They were lessons in patience, skill, and believing in oneself. She carefully placed her bag on a workbench and looked around the barn again. Every tool, every note, and every small invention seemed to be calling her name. Maya felt ready to begin. Today was not just about exploring the barn. It was about starting a new chapter in her life, full of discovery, learning, and surprises. Maya stood in the middle of the barn, feeling a mixture of excitement and awe. Sunlight streamed through the dusty windows, casting golden beams on the wooden floor. Every corner of the barn seemed to hold a secret. Tools hung neatly on the walls, and workbenches were covered with small mechanical parts. The air smelled faintly of oil and wood, a scent that made Maya feel at home. She knew this place had been important to her uncle, and now it was her turn to explore it. She carefully walked around, examining everything. There were sketches of machines pinned to the walls, showing designs for small vehicles, engines, and even clever gadgets. Some sketches were detailed, while others were rough ideas. Maya smiled. She could see her uncle's creativity in every drawing. He had always been inventive, and now it was as if he had left her a treasure trove of ideas to discover and work on. Her eyes then fell on a covered object in the center of the barn. It was large and rectangular, with a cloth draped over it. Maya's curiosity grew. She approached it slowly and pulled the cloth away. Beneath it was a small vehicle, unlike any she had seen before. Its shape was sleek, with smooth curves and a strong frame. The metal was polished, but it was clear that the vehicle had not been completed. Some parts were missing and the engine was exposed. Maya's heart raced. This was her uncle's unfinished invention, and now it was in her hands. She examined the vehicle carefully, noticing the details he had left behind. The design was clever, showing her uncle's skill and imagination. Maya realized that completing this vehicle would require all her knowledge, patience, and creativity. She felt a surge of determination. This was more than a project. It was a chance to continue her uncle's work and bring his vision to life. Maya decided to start by organizing the tools and parts she would need. She cleaned the workbench, sorted screws, bolts, and wires, and made a small list of items she would check in the truck's storage. Every piece had a purpose, and she knew that if she worked carefully, she could complete the vehicle step by step. She loved challenges like this, where patience and attention to detail were more important than speed. As she worked, she thought about how the rusty truck had led her here. At first, she had felt embarrassed by its condition, and the way neighbors had laughed at her. But now she understood. The truck was not just a gift. It was a key. It had carried her to this hidden workshop and opened the door to her uncle's secret world. She smiled, realizing that her determination had turned what others saw as old and useless into an opportunity. Maya spent the afternoon studying the sketches and instructions her uncle had left. She made careful notes and imagined how the missing parts could be designed. The small vehicle was complicated, but she enjoyed the challenge. Her hands moved skillfully and her mind worked quickly, thinking of solutions and improvements. With each idea, she felt closer to understanding her uncle's vision. By evening, Maya stepped back and looked at the barn. It was quiet and still, but she felt a sense of purpose and excitement. She knew that completing the vehicle would take time, but she was ready. Every bolt, every wire, and every part would be a step closer to finishing her uncle's work. The truck outside, the Glovebox secret, and the workshop all felt connected, like pieces of a puzzle that had finally started to make sense. Before leaving for the day, Maya carefully covered the small vehicle to protect it from dust. She cleaned her tools and made sure everything was ready for tomorrow. As she walked back to the truck, she felt proud of what she had discovered. The neighbors might still see a rusty truck outside, but she knew its true value. It was more than metal and paint. It was a path to adventure, learning, and creativity. Maya climbed into the truck, feeling its engine hum gently beneath her. She smiled, thinking about the journey ahead. Tomorrow she would continue working on her uncle's invention, discovering more secrets and learning new skills. The barn, the vehicle, and the old truck had already changed her life, and she knew this was only the beginning of something extraordinary. The next morning, Maya woke up feeling excited and determined. She could not stop thinking about the small vehicle in the barn. It was a project unlike any she had worked on before. Today she decided she would start examining it more carefully and understand what was needed to make it complete. She packed her bag with tools, notebooks, and the map from the glove box and headed to the truck. The truck, although rusty on the outside, was now smooth and steady. Maya drove it carefully along the quiet roads toward the barn. As she approached, she felt a mix of curiosity and pride. She had come a long way since inheriting the truck, and now it had led her to this secret workshop. She parked under the tree and stepped out, her eyes scanning the barn as sunlight danced across the wooden walls. Maya opened the barn door slowly and stepped inside. The smell of oil and metal was comforting. She walked directly to the covered vehicle in the center of the room. Pulling the cloth away, she examined it carefully. The design was clever, and it was clear her uncle had put a lot of thought into every detail. Some parts were missing and the engine needed adjustments, but Maya could see its potential. She felt a spark of excitement. This was not just a vehicle. It was an opportunity to learn, to create, and to continue her uncle's work. Maya began by sorting through the spare parts in the barn. She found gears, bolts, wires, and small metal pieces neatly stored in boxes. She organized them on the workbench and started matching each part to the vehicle. Some pieces fit perfectly, while others needed slight modifications. Maya enjoyed the process. It was like solving a puzzle, each piece connecting perfectly when placed in the right spot. While she worked, she glanced at the map from the glove box. It marked a small location outside the town, not far from the barn. Maya's curiosity grew. She wondered if there was another secret waiting for her there. Perhaps her uncle had left something else he wanted her to find. She made a mental note to visit the spot after she finished organizing the workshop. Hours passed quickly as Maya cleaned and prepared parts for the vehicle. She tightened bolts, connected wires, and adjusted metal pieces. Her hands were covered in grease and her shirt was slightly stained, but she did not mind. Every small step brought her closer to completing her uncle's vision. She could almost imagine the vehicle moving smoothly, powered by her efforts and her uncle's design. Maya paused for a moment and looked around the barn. She noticed a small cabinet in the corner, its doors slightly ajar. Curious, she approached it and opened it fully. Inside were more blueprints and notes, some labeled with her uncle's handwriting and others with sketches of new ideas. Maya's eyes widened with excitement. She realized that her uncle had left her not just one project but many, and each one could teach her something new. She carefully took the notes and placed them on the workbench, ready to study them. As the afternoon sun moved across the sky, Maya felt a sense of accomplishment. The barn was now more organized, the vehicle partially assembled, and the plans and notes ready for her attention. She could see how each day of work would bring new discoveries. The old truck outside, the Glovebox map, and now this workshop all connected perfectly. It was as if her uncle had planned everything to help her grow, step by step. Before leaving for the day, Maya packed her tools and covered the vehicle to protect it from dust. She looked around the barn one last time, feeling a deep sense of pride and excitement. Tomorrow she would continue her work, learning from the notes and assembling the vehicle piece by piece. She also planned to follow the map to the hidden location and see what other surprises her uncle had left for her. Maya stepped outside into the warm evening air. The truck stood patiently under the tree, ready to take her on the next part of her journey. She smiled, thinking about how far she had come in just a few days. The neighbors who had laughed at the rusty truck before would never understand the adventure and discoveries it had brought her. For Maya, the truck was no longer just a vehicle. It was the key to new experiences, learning, and the continuation of her uncle's legacy. With a sense of determination and excitement, Maya climbed into the truck and started the engine. The soft hum beneath her hands reminded her that the journey was only beginning. The barn, the vehicle, the map, and the Glovebox secret had all opened a door to a world full of possibilities. Maya was ready to explore it, learn from it, and create something extraordinary. The morning sun painted the sky in soft gold as Maya prepared for another day of adventure. Today was special. She had decided to follow the map from the Glovebox and see where it led. The small vehicle in the barn would have to wait. This was about discovering the next secret her uncle had left for her. Maya packed her bag with the key, some tools, water, and snacks, and walked toward the rusty truck parked under the tree. The truck, now reliable and smooth, seemed almost alive. Maya smiled as she climbed inside and started the engine. It purred softly, ready to carry her wherever the map guided. She turned the key carefully and drove along the quiet streets of the town. The air was fresh and birds sang in the trees. Even the neighbors who had once laughed at her rusty truck now waved politely. Curious about her determined expression, following the map, Maya turned onto a narrow road that wound around gentle hills and fields. The road was quiet, almost untouched, and she felt as if she was leaving the town behind and entering a secret world. The map showed a path through a small forest, and Maya's excitement grew. She had never been on this road before, and every twist and turn made her heart beat faster. The truck moved carefully along the forest path, its tires crunching softly on the gravel. Maya admired the tall trees, their leaves glowing in the sunlight. Small animals darted through the undergrowth, and she caught glimpses of rabbits and squirrels hiding behind bushes. The forest was peaceful, but Maya could feel the sense of adventure building inside her. She knew she was close to the place marked on the map. After a while, the path opened into a small clearing. In the center was an old wooden barn, smaller than the one near her uncle's house, but clearly important. The map had marked this spot with a small circle and a note in her uncle's handwriting. "Look carefully. There is more to discover." Maya's heart raced as she parked the truck and stepped out. The barn looked quiet and almost forgotten, but Maya could sense that it held something valuable. She approached the barn door and noticed a small lock on it. The key from the Glovebox fit perfectly. With a gentle turn, the lock clicked open, and the barn doors swung wide. Maya stepped inside slowly. The space was dimly lit but smelled faintly of wood and oil, just like her uncle's workshop. Shelves lined the walls, holding small boxes, tools, and curious objects she had never seen before. She felt a thrill of curiosity. In the center of the barn was a small chest covered with a cloth. Maya carefully removed the cover and opened it. Inside were more notes, diagrams, and a small mechanical device that looked incomplete. Maya examined it closely. It was a model, perhaps an invention her uncle had started but never finished. She realized that this was part of a bigger plan. Her uncle had left her these clues step by step, testing her skills and encouraging her creativity. Maya spent the next hour studying the notes and diagrams. They were clear but challenging, showing ideas for simple machines and clever mechanisms. She could see how each piece of the device worked and how it might be completed. The small chest had given her more than just materials. It had given her a puzzle, an adventure, and a chance to learn. After organizing the chest and noting everything carefully, Maya decided to explore the barn a little more. She found small drawers with additional parts, tiny screws, and even miniature wheels. Every discovery made her smile. She could feel her uncle's presence in the careful way everything was arranged. It was as if he had known she would come and left everything ready for her to continue his work. As the afternoon sunlight streamed through the barn windows, Maya felt proud and inspired. The rusty truck, the map, and the secret chest had led her to a new adventure. She understood that her uncle had not only left her material things, but also lessons, patience, observation, and the joy of creating. Maya knew that this was only the beginning, and with determination, she could uncover all the secrets her uncle had left. Finally, she carefully packed the notes and small parts back into the chest and closed the barn doors. The truck waited outside, ready for her next journey. Maya climbed in, feeling a mixture of excitement and pride. Today she had discovered something amazing, and tomorrow she would continue learning, exploring, and bringing her uncle's creations to life. The adventure was just beginning, and she could hardly wait to see what the next step would reveal. The next morning, Maya woke with excitement and determination. She could hardly wait to return to her uncle's barn and work on the small vehicle she had discovered. The truck outside, though rusty, had proven reliable, and it seemed to encourage her to keep moving forward. Today, she planned to start assembling her uncle's unfinished creation, piece by piece. Maya packed her tools carefully and carried the notes and diagrams from the chest into the barn. She studied them again, making sure she understood each step. Her uncle's handwriting was neat and precise, but some of the instructions required careful thinking. Maya loved this part of her work. It was like solving a puzzle where every small piece mattered. She set the plans on the workbench and examined the vehicle closely. The vehicle was small, sleek, and elegant, but incomplete. Some parts of the frame were missing and the engine needed adjustments. Maya began by checking the alignment of the wheels. She adjusted the axles carefully, tightening bolts and making sure everything was steady. Then she connected the wires from the engine, following the diagrams her uncle had left. Every action required precision, and Maya worked slowly and patiently. She felt a deep satisfaction in bringing something unfinished to life. Hours passed quickly as Maya assembled parts of the vehicle. She cleaned each piece before attaching it, making sure it fit perfectly. Sometimes she paused to study her uncle's notes again, tracing lines on the diagrams with her finger. She realized that he had left clever solutions for problems that she might encounter. Maya smiled, feeling a sense of connection with her uncle. It was as if he had planned for her to continue his work, guiding her even from afar. By afternoon, the basic structure of the vehicle was complete. Maya stood back and looked at it with pride. The frame was steady, the wheels were aligned, and the engine was ready for testing. She could see the potential in the design. Her uncle had been a brilliant inventor, and now she had the chance to learn from him and finish what he had started. Maya's heart beat faster with excitement. While working, Maya noticed a small compartment under the seat. She opened it and found a few more parts, including a tiny screwdriver, a set of nuts and bolts, and a small piece of metal shaped like a lever. She smiled, realizing her uncle had anticipated her work and had hidden these extra parts for her to find. It felt like a treasure hunt, and Maya enjoyed every moment. She carefully placed the pieces on the workbench, ready to use them. The final step for the day was connecting the engine to the main frame. Maya adjusted it carefully, making sure every connection was secure. She checked the fuel lines, wires, and gears. Everything seemed ready. Her hands trembled slightly with excitement as she turned the key in the ignition. The engine hummed to life smoothly, stronger than she had expected. Maya laughed softly, thrilled that the vehicle was working. She felt proud not only of her skill but also of her uncle's vision, which had inspired her every step. As the evening sun began to fade, Maya cleaned her tools and carefully covered the vehicle. She looked around the barn, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. The rusty truck outside had led her to this moment, to a discovery that had changed her life. She knew that tomorrow she could continue refining the vehicle. learning more from the notes and exploring even more of her uncle's inventions. Maya climbed into the truck and started the engine. The soft hum beneath her hands reminded her of the journey so far, from inheriting the rusty truck to discovering the hidden barn, and finally beginning the vehicle's assembly. She realized that patience, curiosity, and determination had brought her here. The neighbors who had laughed at her truck before could not understand the adventure it had led her to. Driving back home slowly, Maya thought about all the work still ahead. She knew the vehicle was not yet complete, and there were many challenges to face. But she felt ready. Every step she had taken had taught her something new. She smiled to herself, imagining the vehicle finished, moving smoothly under her care, a symbol of creativity, persistence, and the bond she shared with her uncle. The next morning, Maya woke with a feeling of excitement and purpose. Today would be the day she completed her uncle's small vehicle. She had worked carefully on it for days, following his notes and diagrams, and now everything seemed ready. The rusty truck outside, which had once been mocked by neighbors, had carried her on a journey full of discoveries, learning, and adventure. Maya felt proud and determined as she packed her tools and headed to the barn. The barn was quiet, filled with sunlight streaming through the dusty windows. Maya uncovered the small vehicle and examined it carefully. Every part she had installed previously was in place, and the engine was ready for its final adjustments. She connected the last wires and tightened the remaining bolts. Her hands worked skillfully, moving from one part to another with confidence. She felt a deep connection to her uncle as she completed his design. Maya paused for a moment, studying the vehicle. It was small, sleek, and elegant, just as her uncle had imagined. She could see how much thought and care had gone into the design. This was not just a vehicle. It was a symbol of creativity, skill, and determination. Maya smiled, thinking about how far she had come since the day she inherited the rusty truck. The journey had been full of challenges, but each step had taught her something important. With the final checks done, Maya climbed into the driver's seat. She turned the key in the ignition and the engine hummed smoothly. A bright smile spread across her face. The vehicle moved forward easily, responding to her every command. She drove it slowly around the barn, feeling the thrill of accomplishment. The once ignored truck outside had led her to a hidden workshop, secret notes, and now a finished invention. Maya felt proud, knowing she had solved the puzzle her uncle had left for her. After testing the vehicle inside the barn, Maya decided to take it out for a short drive in the town. She carefully drove along the narrow streets, the engine quiet and steady. People on the street stopped and stared. They recognized the small vehicle and whispered among themselves. Maya noticed their surprised expressions. The neighbors who had laughed at her rusty truck could not believe their eyes. Maya smiled politely, keeping her focus on the road and the feeling of success she carried inside. As she drove through the town, she remembered the first day she had inherited the rusty truck. People had mocked her, saying she could never fix it. Now the same truck had led her to a secret workshop, hidden notes, and a new invention. Maya realized that patience, hard work, and belief in herself had made all the difference. She felt proud not just of the vehicle, but also of the journey she had completed. Returning to the barn, Maya carefully parked the small vehicle and covered it to protect it from dust. She cleaned her tools and organized the workshop, ready for future projects. She knew there were more inventions and notes to explore, more challenges to face, and more opportunities to learn. The barn had become a place of creativity and discovery, and Maya felt grateful for the gift her uncle had left her. That evening, Maya stood outside the barn and looked at the rusty truck parked under the tree. It had carried her on an adventure that changed her life. She realized that appearances could be deceiving. The neighbors had mocked the truck, but it had been the key to something extraordinary. Maya smiled, feeling a sense of pride and confidence. She knew that with skill, patience, and determination, she could turn anything that seemed ordinary into something remarkable. Maya's story soon became known in the town. People who had doubted her now admired her skills and determination. They understood that her talent, creativity, and courage had turned a rusty old truck into the beginning of an amazing journey. Maya, however, remained humble, knowing that the true value of the adventure was the lessons she had learned and the bond she felt with her uncle. With the sun setting behind the hills, Maya walked toward the barn, ready for the next project. The small vehicle, The secret notes and the rusty truck had all shown her that patience, hard work, and belief in oneself could create something extraordinary. Maya smiled, knowing that her adventure was only the beginning and that many more discoveries and inventions awaited her in the days to come.